I was 23 years old when the weight of my family's history settled on my shoulders, heavy as the gold chains my late father used to wear. My name is Adiza, and I was the reluctant heiress to one of Nairobi's largest and most mysterious fortunes. From the moment my father died, my luxurious family estate in Karen, Nairobi, transformed from a home into a fortress, a high-security prison, where the only view was the expansive, manicured lawn and the electric scents humming with lethal power. The inheritance itself was massive, involving offshore accounts, property across East Africa, and several influential businesses. But the transfer was complicated, tied to archaic legal clauses and a looming deadline. Disgruntled relatives, the vultures waiting outside the fence, were circling, ready to challenge my claim, and my paranoia was absolute.
I needed protection that was more than just armed guards. I needed a shield. My lawyer recommended Elias. He came with a file thicker than a textbook, detailing ex-Special Forces training, impeccable references, and a reputation for ruthless efficiency. He was expensive, but money was the one thing I had in abundance. The day Elias arrived, the air in the estate changed. I was reviewing the final asset transfer documents, millions of shillings pending my signature, when he was ushered into the main study. He stood tall, filling the doorway, his tailored charcoal suit somehow managing to look like armor. He didn't speak first. He simply looked at me. That stare. It wasn't the professional appraisal of a security expert studying a client's vulnerabilities. It was intense, burning, and profoundly familiar. It felt less like scrutiny and more like recognition, or worse, accusation.
His eyes were dark, shadowed, and seemed to hold a lifetime of silent suffering. I felt a sudden, inexplicable chill, a feeling that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I tried to shake it off. "Elias," I said, extending my hand. "Thank you for coming." His handshake was firm and ice cold, despite the Nairobi heat. "Adiza," he replied, his voice low, almost a rumble. His gaze never wavered. For a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of something raw and childlike in those deep eyes, a memory of a boy I used to know, a boy who had vanished years ago. Kofi. But Kofi was dead. Kofi was a ghost I had buried deep beneath the foundation of this very estate. I was too focused on securing my future, on the millions of shillings waiting for my signature, to entertain the notion that a dead boy's ghost was now standing guard over my life.
I had an empire to secure, and Elias was the key to my safety. I focused on the documents, pushing the terrifying familiarity of his stare far away. Why did Elias's stare feel so familiar? And why did his presence cause a chill that even the Nairobi sun couldn't warm? Elias didn't waste a second proving his worth. Within hours of his arrival, he uncovered a sophisticated listening device hidden inside a bronze statue in the library, a spot my previous security team had missed for months. Later that afternoon, as I met with the legal team, a drone breached the perimeter. It wasn't carrying a bomb. It was carrying a high-resolution camera, clearly trying to capture images of the signed documents. Elias handled it with terrifying precision. One moment he was standing calmly by the door, the next he was outside, a blur of motion. The drone plummeted from the sky, shot down not by a conventional weapon, but by a high-powered pressurized dart. His efficiency was breathtaking. He was absolutely indispensable. "He is the best, Miss Adiza," Mr. Otieno, the estate manager, whispered to me later, his own brow furrowed. Though his background checks were unusually difficult to verify, like he materialized out of thin air. I was relieved by the security he provided, but the unease persisted. I watched him constantly. He never seemed to sleep. He rarely ate, and when he did, it was always the same specific, bland meal prepared under his direct supervision. One evening, I saw him sitting alone on the terrace. He was holding a small, smooth, worn piece of gray stone, turning it over and over in his massive palm. My breath caught. Kofi, my childhood friend, the boy who disappeared,
had carried an identical stone. He called it his protection stone. Later, during a private briefing about the security route to the legal offices in Upper Hill, I was distracted, thinking about the stone. "Are you all right, Adiza?" Elias asked, his tone flat, professional. "Yes," I stammered. "It's just the pressure." He looked at me, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. "Don't worry, little sparrow. I won't let anyone touch you." Little sparrow. The world stopped spinning. That was it. That was the nickname. Kofi was the only person who had ever called me that, a name derived from a silly game we played in the mango trees when we were 7. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Where did you hear that name?" I demanded, my voice sharp. Elias didn't flinch. His expression immediately went blank.
"It's a common term of endearment in my former military unit, Miss Adiza. We used it for anyone we had to keep especially safe. It means fragile, but determined." He was lying. The lie was smooth, practiced, and delivered with the conviction of a man who knew he couldn't be challenged. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but the sheer volume of wealth awaiting me, the billions of shillings, held my tongue captive. I told myself I was being sentimental, projecting old memories onto a highly professional man. The wealth was everything. The past was dead. If you want to see what happens when temptation seems too perfect and your past refuses to stay buried, subscribe to this channel. Things are about to get much darker. The legal transfer date was rapidly approaching. Thanks to Elias, the final paperwork went through without a hitch. I was officially the heiress. The wealth was mine.
The sense of triumph was intoxicating, but it was poisoned by the persistent, chilling presence of Elias. My cousin, Amma, flew in from Mombasa to congratulate me, though her face was etched with worry. Amma was older, wiser, and knew the deep, dark secrets of the family history that my father had tried so hard to bury. "He gives me the creeps, Adiza," Amma said, watching Elias from across the room. Elias, true to his word, had stationed himself near the doorway, silent and immovable. "He's too perfect, and the way he looks at you. He's protecting me, Amma. Without him, the relatives would have torn me apart." Amma leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Protection comes at a price, Adiza. Our grandfather, his wealth wasn't built on legal savvy alone. There are rumors of a pact, a dark ritual made years ago with the earth spirits to secure the family line. It demanded a sacrifice." I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach, but Elias was listening. I knew he was. I watched him subtly adjust his collar, and that was when I saw it. A small, faded, star-shaped scar just above the cuff of his expensive shirt, near the wrist bone. I froze. That star-shaped scar, Kofi had gotten it when we were 10, falling from the highest branch of the mango tree, trying to retrieve my lost kite. I had cleaned the wound myself. I tried to subtly test Elias again later that day. I brought up Kofi directly. "Elias, I was thinking about a childhood friend who disappeared years ago. Kofi. Did you ever know anyone by that name?" He met my gaze, his eyes unreadable, completely blank. "No, Miss Adiza, I have no memory of a Kofi." He maintained his professional composure, but his lack of reaction, the sheer emptiness of his denial, was more suspicious than any stuttering lie. My certainty solidified when I found an old, faded photograph, me, skinny and gap-toothed, standing next to Kofi, who was wearing the same proud, determined expression I now saw on Elias. I hid the photo in my bedside table. When I went to look at it the next morning, it was gone, vanished. Elias was the only person with access to my room, besides me. He hadn't just denied Kofi's existence, he was actively erasing the proof. If you've ever ignored warning signs because something looked too good or too necessary, hit the like button. I know I'm not alone in this foolish, terrifying blindness. The terror had fully set in, replacing the initial relief of security. I was living with a phantom, a walking contradiction. A man who was absolutely essential for my life, yet represented the deepest, darkest secret of my past. The first major revelation came when Elias announced he had to leave the estate for a few hours. A necessary security assessment in Mombasa, he stated, his mission sounding vague and suspiciously urgent. This was my chance. I knew he wouldn't leave me unprotected, but his absence gave me the window I desperately needed. I used the master key I had secretly copied from the estate office and slipped into Elias's highly secured, minimalist apartment within the compound. The room was sterile, devoid of personal items, except for a small, almost invisible compartment behind a false electrical socket. My hands were shaking so badly I struggled to open it. Inside, nestled among spare ammunition clips, was not a weapon, but a small, worn Bible. It wasn't just any Bible. It was Kofi's. His name, Kofi, was scrawled on the inside cover in the childish, slightly slanted handwriting I remembered perfectly. My eyes blurred as I flipped through it, landing on a passage underlined heavily in faded pencil. And one shall betray the other, and the dead shall rise to witness the cost of the living. I gasped, the air thick and heavy in my lungs. This wasn't a coincidence. This was proof. I stumbled out of his apartment, the Bible clutched tightly, and immediately called Amma. I spoke in hushed, frantic whispers, telling her about the scar, the nickname, the missing photo, and now the Bible. Amma's voice, usually steady, cracked with fear. Adiza, you must listen. I remember the date of the pact. Grandfather signed the final documents for the first major land acquisition on October 14th, the exact day Kofi disappeared. It wasn't an accident. The sacrifice was necessary to bind the wealth to the bloodline. Kofi didn't just die. He was used. I dropped onto a leather chair, feeling the opulent room spinning around me. The horror was overwhelming. My inheritance, the thing I had fought so hard to secure, was literally built on the blood of my childhood friend. Elias was Kofi, resurrected or returned, and he was guarding his own tomb. I heard the distinct, low rumble of Elias's customized security vehicle pulling up to the main house. He was back early. Panic seized me. He knew I would look. He knew I was suspicious. I quickly hid Kofi's Bible under a loose floorboard in my own room and fled his quarters just moments before I heard his key turn in his door. Comment where you're watching from and tell us, would you confront Elias immediately or investigate the curse first? I knew I couldn't confront him yet. I was trapped, protected by the very man who represented my deepest terror. I had to find out what he wanted, and more importantly, what the curse demanded. Amma, still on the phone, had urged me to search the estate archives for anything relating to the family's founding documents. I spent the next 48 hours in a fog of fear, pretending everything was normal while I scoured my father's forgotten study. I found it, a brittle, rolled-up map hidden inside the hollow leg of a mahogany desk. It wasn't a map of land, it was a blueprint of the estate, focusing on the oldest structure, the massive, unused water cistern beneath the original main wing. Marked clearly on the map was a single stylized star, the exact symbol of the scar on Elias's wrist. It marked the entrance to the hidden chamber Amma had mentioned. The entrance was concealed behind a huge, unused wine rack in the cellar. It took all my strength to move the rack, revealing a narrow, dark stone staircase descending into absolute darkness. I grabbed a flashlight and forced myself forward. As my foot hit the third step, a voice, calm and utterly terrifying, spoke right behind me. "Where are you going, little sparrow?" I screamed, dropping the flashlight. It clattered down the steps, its beam illuminating the dust-filled air. Elias stood at the entrance, his face shadowed, his posture casual yet utterly dominating.
I was checking the wiring, Elias. It sounded like a short circuit. I lied, my voice shaking uncontrollably. He didn't move. He didn't even pretend to believe me. He simply smiled, the same cold, distant smile he always wore. But this time, it held a profound sadness. "You don't need to lie to me, Adiza," he said softly, repeating the childhood promise that now sounded like a threat. "I will always follow you, Adiza. Always." That was the confirmation. He was Kofi. He knew I was investigating. But if he was trying to stop me, why did he let me go? He stepped aside, allowing me to descend. He was watching me, waiting. The hunter and the hunted, locked in a dance I didn't understand. If you want early access to stories like this and exclusive behind-the-scenes content that reveals the secrets of African wealth, become a channel member. Etched crudely into the stone surface was the star-shaped scar, and next to it, a single line of script in a language I didn't recognize, but whose meaning was immediately clear: the Guardian's mark. I felt faint. This was where Kofi had been sacrificed. This was the source of my family's wealth, bound to the earth by a boy's life. Elias was not merely protecting me. He was protecting the inheritance, the very product of his own suffering, waiting for the curse to run its course. My trembling fingers brushed against the altar stone, and I found a small, rolled-up piece of parchment tucked into a crevice. It was a final, cryptic note, written in my grandfather's shaky hand. "The pact is sealed, but not complete. The blood must return to the source when the final heir claims the price." The ritual was not finished, and Elias, the resurrected Kofi, was the key to the final step. I turned quickly, ready to run, but Elias was already there, standing just outside the chamber, blocking the only exit. "You understand now," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying the weight of years of torment. "I am Kofi. I never died fully. When they performed the ritual here, they bound my essence to the estate, making me the guardian of the wealth. I was the price." Tears streamed down my face. "Why? Why are you doing this? If you hate the wealth, why protect the heiress?" Elias stepped into the light, and for the first time, I saw the raw pain in his eyes. "I came back to break the curse, Adiza, not to fulfill it. The curse demands another sacrifice if the wealth is kept past the date of final transfer. That sacrifice is you." My blood ran cold. I was the final step. "I have been protecting you from the true conspirator, the one who ordered the ritual years ago and who intends to complete it now," Elias continued. "He needs your blood on this altar to fully transfer the power and claim the wealth for himself." "Who?" I whispered, looking desperate. "I have been protecting you from the true conspirator, the one who ordered the ritual years ago and who intends to complete it now,"
Elias continued. He needs your blood on this altar to fully transfer the power and claim the wealth for himself. Who? I whispered, looking desperately around the small dark room. Mr. Otieno, Elias said, just as the estate manager, Mr. Otieno, appeared at the top of the stairs, not with his usual polite smile, but with a sharp, ceremonial dagger glinting in the flashlight beam. Elias, you fool! You were supposed to deliver her, Otieno shrieked, descending the stairs rapidly. You were the guardian, loyal to the pact. The final blood must be spilled tonight. The climax was upon us. I was trapped between the man who had orchestrated the occult sacrifice for my family's greed and the man who was the living embodiment of that sacrifice. Elias moved faster than I could follow. He didn't use a gun. He fought Otieno with a brutal, almost supernatural force. His movements were too swift, too powerful for a mere man. Otieno fought back with crazed strength, fueled by the promise of the dark wealth. You cost me my life, Otieno, Elias roared, his voice echoing in the stone chamber. As they wrestled, Elias lunged, not for Otieno, but for the briefcase Otieno had dropped, the case containing the original occult-bound legal documents that formalized the pact. With a cry of pure, desperate energy, Elias tore the papers out and threw them onto the altar, simultaneously kicking Otieno back against the stone wall. The pact is broken, Elias yelled, striking the altar with a force that cracked the ancient stone. The moment the documents tore, a sickening, low sound filled the chamber, like the earth itself sighing in relief. Otieno screamed, clutching his head, his eyes rolling back as if the dark power had been violently ripped from him. He collapsed into a heap of useless flesh. Elias turned to me, breathing heavily. He looked exhausted, his body flickering slightly, as if he were struggling to maintain his physical form. The wealth is gone, Adiza, he whispered. The source of the pact is destroyed. You are free. If these stories teach you valuable lessons about the price of hidden wealth and discernment, please support the channel with a super thanks. It helps us keep bringing these important stories to you. The police found Mr. Otieno in the chamber, babbling incoherently about spirits and sacrifices. He was taken into custody, never to be heard from again. The destruction of the original documents and the discovery of the occult chamber led to an immediate freeze on all my inherited assets. The government launched an investigation into the illegal origins of the fortune, and soon the entire estate and wealth were dissolved. 6 months later, I am no longer Adiza, the heiress. I forfeited the cursed wealth completely. I now run a small, ethical import business with Ama's help, living in a modest apartment in Nairobi. I am poorer, yes, but I am infinitely freer. I often reflect on that night. After he destroyed the pact, Elias Kofi simply vanished. He had fulfilled his purpose as a bound guardian, ensuring the curse could never claim another victim. He saved my life by destroying the very thing he was sworn to protect. The moral lesson I learned cost me everything material, but gained me my soul. The price of wealth gained through dark means is always too high. You must trust your intuition. The staring eyes, the cold touch, the whisper of the past when something feels inherently wrong. Material greed and rushing into relationships, even professional ones, without spiritual discernment, will lead you into the gravest danger. I still carry one item from that terrifying time, Kofi's worn stone, a smooth gray reminder of the boy who became a sacrifice and then became my salvation. I look at it now, not with fear, but with peace. I am finally at peace in Nairobi. We have another powerful story coming your way about a farmer who found a talking calabash and the strange demands it made. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thank you for watching. Where in Africa or the world are you watching from?